उत्तम श्लोके
Bhaktir-bhavati naishtiki.
भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी.
By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, entitled Canto 9, text, Canto 9, Chapter 10, text number 16. Badvo dadho raghupatir vividhadrikutay सेतुं कपीन्द्रकरकं पितभूरुहाङ्गै
सेतुं कपीन्द्रकरकपितं बुभुरङ्गाङ्गे
सुग्रीवनीलहनुमत् प्रमुखैरनिकैर्
सुग्रीवनीलहनुमत् प्रमुखैरनिकैर्
लङ्कां विभीषणदृशा विशदग्रदग्धाम्
लङ्कां विभीषण
बद्ध्वो दधो रघुपतिर्विविधाद्रिकूटै
बद्ध्वो दधो रघुपतिर्विविधाद्रिकूटे
सेतुं कपीन्द्रकरकं पितभूरुहाङ्गै
सेतुं कपीन्द्रकरकपितं बुभुरङ्गाङ्गे
सुग्रीवनीलहनुमत् प्रमुखैरनिकैर्
सुग्रीवनीलहनुमत् प्रमुखैरनिकैर्
लङ्कां विभीषणदृशा विशदग्रदग्धाम्
लङ्कां विभीषणाद्रविशेषाङ्ग
बद्ध्वो दधौ रघुपतिर्विविधाद्रिकूटै
बद्ध्वो दधौ रघुपतिर्विविधाद्रिकूटे
सेतुं कपीन्द्रकरकं पितभूरुहाङ्गै
सेतुं कपीन्द्रकरकम्पितभूरुहाङ्गे
सेतुं कपीन्द्रकरकं पितभूरुहाङ्गै
सेतुं कपीन्द्रकरकम्पितभूरुभुङ्गहाङ्गे
सुग्रीवनीलहनुमत् प्रमुखैरनिकैर्
सुग्रीवनीलहनुमत् प्रमुखैरनिकैर्
लङ्कां विभीषणदृशा विशदग्रदग्धाम्
लङ्कां विभीषणद्रविशदग्रदग्धाम् बद्ध्वो दधौ रघुपतिर्विविधाद्रिकूटे
बद्ध्वो दधौ रघुपतिर्विविधाद्रिकूटै
सेतुं कपीन्द्रकरकम्पितभूरुभुङ्गहे
सेतुं कपीन्द्रकरकं पितभूरुहाङ्गै
सुग्रीवनीलहनुमत् प्रमुखैरनिकैर्
सुग्रीवनीलहनुमत् प्रमुखैरनिकैर्
लङ्कां विभीषणाद्रविशद् अग्रदग्धाम्
लङ्कां विभीषणदृशा विशदग्रदग्धाम्
बद्ध्वो दधौ रघुपतिर्विविधाद्रिकूटै
बद्ध्वो दधौ रघुपतिर्विविधाद्रिकूटै
सेतुं कपीन्द्रकरकं पितभूरुहाङ्गै
सेतुं कपीन्द्रकरकं पितभूरुहाङ्गै
सुग्रीवनीलहनुमत् प्रमुखैरनिकैर्
सुग्रीवनीलहनुमत् प्रमुखैरनिकैर्
लङ्कां विभीषणदृशवशात् अग्रदग्धाम्
लङ्कां विभीषणदृशा विशदग्रदग्धाम्
बद्ध्वो दधौ रघुपतिर्विविधाद्रिकूटै
बद्ध्वो दधौ रघुपतिर्विविधाद्रिकूटै
सेतुं कपीन्द्रकरकं पितभूरुहाङ्गै
सेतुं कपीन्द्रकरकं पितभूरुहाङ्गै
सुग्रीवनीलहनुमत् प्रमुखैरनीकैर्
सुग्रीवनीलहनुमत् प्रमुखैरनिकैर्
लङ्कां विभीषणदृशा विशदग्रदग्धाम्
लङ्कां विभीषणदृशा विशदग्रदग्धाम्
बद्ध्वो दधौ रघुपतेर्विविधाद्रिकूटैः सेतुं कपीन्द्रकरकम्पितभूराङ्गहैः
Nrakarakam
Sugriva Nila Hanumanta Pramukhe Anike
Sugriva Nila Hanumat Pramukhairanikar
Lankam Vibhishana Drisha Visadagradagdam
Lankam Vibhishana Drisha Vishadagradagdham
बद्धो दधौ रघुपतिर्विविधाद्रिकूटे
Badho Dadho Raghupatir Vividhadrikute
सेतुं कपीन्द्रकरकम्पितभूरुहाङ्गे
Setum Kapindra Karakam Pitabhurhange
सुग्रीवनीलहनुमत्प्रमुखैरनीकै
Sugriva Nila Hanumat Pramukhairanikar
लङ्कां विभीषणदृशा विषयदग्धम्
बद्वो ददौ रघुपतेर्विविधाद्रिकूटे
Vividhadrikute
सेतुं कपीन्द्रकरकम्पितभूरुहाङ्गे
Setum Kapindra Karakam Pitabhurhange
सुग्रीवनीलहनुमत्प्रमुखैरनीखेर्
Sugriva Nila Hanumat Pramukhairanikar
लङ्कां विभीषणदृशा विशदग्रदग्धाम्
Lankam Vibhishana Drisha Vishadagradagdham
बद्वो ददौ रघुपतिर्विविधाद्रिकूटे
Badho Dadho Raghupatir Vividhadrikute
सेतुं कपीन्द्रकरकम्पितभूरुहाङ्गे
Setum Kapindra Karakam Pitabhurhange
सुग्रीवनीलहनुमत्प्रमुखैरणीके
Sugriva Nila Hanumat Pramukhairanikar
लङ्कां विभीषणदृशविशदग्रदग्धाम्
Lankam Vibhishana Drisha Vishadagradagdham. Everybody online? Hare Krishna. One second. Mataji, are you chanting? Can you chant one more time? Hare Krishna. Badho Dadho Raghupatir Vividhadrikute Setum Kapindra Karakam Pitabhurhange Sugriva Nila Hanumat Pramukhairanikar Lankam Vibhishana Drisha Vishadagradagdham. Synonyms: Badhva, after constructing; Udadhau, in the water of the ocean; Raghupatihi, Lord Ramachandra;
Lord Ramchandra
Vividha,
Vividha
varieties of; Adrikutaihi,
Adrikutaihi
with peaks of great mountains;
with peaks of great mountains
Setum,
Setum
a bridge;
bridge
Kapi Indra,
Indra
of powerful monkeys;
a powerful monkey
Karakampita,
Karakampita
moved by the great hands;
moved by the great hands
Bhuruha Angaihi,
Guruha Angaihi
with the trees and plants;
with the trees and plants
Sugriva,
Sugriva
Sugriva,
Sugriva
Nila,
Nila
Nila,
Nila
Hanumat,
Hanumat
Hanuman,
Hanuman
Pramukhaihi,
Pramukaihi
led by
led by
Anikaihi,
Anikaihi
with such soldiers;
with such soldiers
Lankam,
Lankam
Lanka, the kingdom of Ravana;
Lanka the kingdom of Ravana
Vibhishana Drisha,
Bhishana Drusha
by the direction of Vibhishana, the brother of Ravana;
by the direction of Vibhishan the brother of Ravana
Avishad,
Avishad
entered;
entered
Agradagdham,
Agradagdham
which was previously burned
which was previously burned
by the monkey soldier Hanuman.
by the monkey soldier Hanuman.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Translation: Sukadev Goswami said, after constructing a bridge over the ocean by throwing into the water the peaks of mountains whose trees and other vegetation had been shaken by the hands of great monkeys, Lord Ramachandra went to Lanka to release Sita Devi from the clutches of Ravana. With the direction and help of Bibhishana, Ravana's brother, the Lord, along with the monkey soldiers, headed by Sugriva, Nila, and Hanuman, entered Ravana's kingdom, Lanka, which had previously been burnt by Hanuman. Translation with repetition. Sukadev Goswami said,
Sukhdev Goswami said,
after constructing a bridge over the ocean
after constructing a bridge over the ocean
by throwing into the water
by throwing into the water
the peaks of mountains
the peaks of mountains
whose trees and other vegetation
whose trees and other vegetation
had been shaken by the hands of great monkeys,
had been shaken by the hands of great monkeys.
Lord Ramachandra went to Lanka
Lord Ramchandra went to Lanka
to release Sita Devi
to release Sita Devi
from the clutches of Ravana.
from the clutches of Ravana.
With the direction and help of Bibhishana,
With the direction of and help of Vibhishana,
Ravana's brother,
Ravana's brother,
the Lord, along with the monkey soldiers,
the Lord along with the monkey soldiers,
headed by Sugriva,
headed by Sugriva,
Nila,
Nila,
and Hanuman,
and Hanuman,
entered Ravana's kingdom,
entered Ravana's kingdom,
Lanka,
Lanka,
which had previously been burnt by
which had previously been burned by
Hanuman.
Hanuman.
Purport by Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Great mountain peaks covered with trees and plants were thrown into the sea by the monkey soldiers and began to float by the supreme will of the Lord. By the supreme will of the Lord, many great planets float weightlessly in space like swabs of cotton. If this is possible, why should great mountain peaks not be able to float on water? This is the omnipotence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He can do anything and everything he likes, because he is not under the control of the material nature. Indeed, material nature is controlled by him. Mayadhyakshena prakriti suyate sacharacharam. Only under his direction does prakriti or material nature work. Similar information is given in the Brahma Samhita 5.52. Yasyangya brahmati sambhrata kala chakro govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Describing how material nature works, the Brahma Samhita says that the sun moves as desired by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Consequently, for Lord Ramachandra to construct a bridge over the Indian Ocean with the help of monkey soldiers who threw great mountain peaks into the water is not at all wonderful. It is wonderful only in the sense that it has kept the name and fame of Lord Ramachandra eternally celebrated. Ascends the wonderful transcendental Bhakti Vedanta purport. Om Ajnanatimmirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So, I would like to welcome each one of you for this wonderful Ram Navami festival. And what a wonderful verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. When we chant the verse with the right meter, it touches, even if we don't know the meaning. Badho dadho raghupatir vividhadrikute setum kapindra karakam pitabhuruhange sugriva nila hanumat pramukhair anikair lankam vibhishana drisha vishadagradagdham. Such a wonderful verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. Actually, the whole idea of hearing about these pastimes of the Lord, especially the pastimes of Lord Ram, there is a special significance. And there is a reason why we should condition living entities who are in this material world, having accepted material bodies, are rotting. We should become awake, we should become aware of the special days like, Ram Navami, which is the appearance day of Lord Ram. Ideally, people ask, what should we do on Ram Navami or Janmashtami or some such festivals? And often people say, I should just buy some new clothes, or I should maybe visit some temple for some time and then be busy with my own life. But actually, festivals like this is a great opportunity for us to remember the wonderful pastimes of the Lord. Pastimes of the Lord are so sweet, so nectar, that the nectar can remove all the contaminations in our heart. The heart which is filled with so many contaminations and filthy things can go away just by hearing. The nectar of Lord Ram's pastimes are so wonderful that even if, how many of you have read Ramayana? Kahan pada bhai? Kaun sa Ramayana pada? Ramcharitmanas. Okay, one hand. Okay, at least we'll accept. How many of, none of us have read. But then Ramayana is so sweet and so wonderful that every one of us, we know about it. We have heard about Ramayana, we have heard about Lord Ram's pastimes, we have heard about this. This is not something which is unknown, like in the case of Parsuram or some other incarnation of the Lord, which many people may not know. Whereas we have not read about Ramayana, yet that knowledge is prevalent. Sukadev Goswami, when he begins to narrate about Lord Ram's pastimes in the 9th canto, he says, you must have heard about this from very long time, right? This is all available. This is a fact. Lord Ram's pastime happened in Tritya Yuga. Still this is wonderful. Prabhupada writes in the last line of the purport, Lord Ramachandra, consequently for Lord Ramachandra to construct a bridge over the Indian Ocean with the help of monkey soldiers who threw great mountain peaks into the water is not at all wonderful. It is wonderful only in the sense that it has kept the name and fame of Lord Ramachandra eternally celebrated. I don't know how long back this pastime has happened, but there is so much to learn in this, and these pastimes of the Lord are so wonderful, so nectarian. So actually, Lord Ramachandra is known as Purushottama, and he is also known as Maryada Purushottama. The descent of Lord when he comes as Lord Ram is to establish the social etiquettes, how one should behave in the society, how one should be an ideal king, how should be one ideal son, how should one be an ideal father, how should one be an ideal husband, how should one be an ideal brother, how should one be an ideal disciple of his guru. Every single aspect the Lord demonstrates. Shri Krishna, when he descends, we call him as Leela Purushottam. The pastimes that the Lord performs are wonderful, sweet, nectarian. But when Lord Ram comes, he is called Maryada Purushottam. There's a huge difference. But mind you, if somebody wants to enter into the pastimes of the Lord, like Rasalila, or something like that, which he wants to relish, the first thing that is required is etiquette, Maryada. Without Maryada, trying to enjoy the pastimes of the Lord is like Sahajiyas. They don't follow any social customs, etiquettes, traditions, nothing. They just enter into the pastimes, which is called Sahajiyas. Even in our Gaudiya Vaishnava Parampara, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very particular. All the Goswamis were very particular to have the Maryadas, to follow these traditions, to follow these etiquettes very strongly, very rigidly. That helps us to enter into the field of bhakti. Without those Maryada, if somebody tries to enter into bhakti, he'll be completely misled and misunderstood. He can't fathom it, actually. It is beyond our human intellect. So, let me start with this. What is the benefit of hearing Ramakatha? Such wonderful nectarian pastimes of Lord Ram. What is the benefit? Sukadev Goswami, in one verse in Bhagavatam, he says this towards the end of the 11th chapter, which concludes, almost about to conclude the pastimes of Lord Ram. He's saying, Purusho Rama Charitam Shravane Rupadharayan Anashramsya Paro Rajan Karma Bandher Vimuchyate. Purusho Rama Charitam Shravane Rupadharayan Anshramsya Paro Rajan. This word Anshramsya Paro is a very interesting word. Ansramsya paro. Ansramsya paro rajan karma bandher vimuchyate. Our heart which is filled with envy, the envy towards every single living entity in this material world. If somebody is slightly more advanced in terms of material prosperity, even in terms of devotional services or spiritual prosperity, we have an envy. Purusho Ramacharitam Shravane Upadharayan. When we just hear Ramacharitam, when we hear this glories and the pastimes and the activities of Lord Ram, Anshamsya Paro Rajan Karma Bandher Vimuchyate. O King Parikshit, anyone who orally receives the narrations concerning the characteristics of Lord Ramachandra's pastimes will ultimately be freed from the disease of envy and thus be liberated from the bondage of fruitive activities. Karma bandher vimuchyate. Karma bandhe. These two things, the disease of envy, it is not some mental disturbance or an impurity, it is a disease of mind to become envious of someone else. The disease is a very strong, deep-rooted disease why we are here in this material world. We see somebody else getting little more favor, little more this thing than me, than myself. I develop this disease of envy. So, disease of envy and then karma bandher, the bondage of fruitive activities. How will you get liberated from this? How will you come out of this? So this is Sukadeva Goswami saying, O King Parikshit, anyone who orally receives Shravanair Upadharayan. Shravanair Upadharayan are repetitive, the same thing. By oral reception, Upadharayan is also simply by the process of hearing. Shravanair Upadharayan of Lord Ram. If orally somebody receives the narrations concerning the characteristics of Lord Ramachandra's pastimes, Purusho Ramacharitam, he will ultimately be freed from the disease of envy and thus be liberated from the bondage of fruitive activities. Ansramsya Parorajan Karma Bandher Vimuchyate. Very wonderful purport by Prabhupada. Let's pay attention to this. Here in this material world, everyone is envious of someone else. Even in religious life, it is sometimes found that if one devotee has advanced in spiritual activities, other devotees are envious of him. Such envious devotees are not completely freed from the bondage of birth and death. As long as one is not completely free from the cause of birth and death, one cannot enter the Sanatana Dharma or the eternal pastimes of the Lord. Mind you, as long as one is not completely free from the cause of birth and death, and the cause of birth and death, as Prabhupada is writing, is the envy in the heart. As long as one is not completely free from the cause of birth and death, one cannot enter the Sanatana Dham or the eternal pastimes of the Lord. One becomes envious because of being influenced by the designations of the body, but the liberated devotee has nothing to do with the body, and therefore he is completely on the transcendental platform. A devotee is never envious of anyone, even his enemy, because the devotee knows that the Lord is his supreme protector. He thinks, what harm can the so-called enemy do? Thus a devotee is confident about his protection. The Lord says, Ye yatha mam prapadyante tams tatheva bhajamyaham. According to the proportion of one's surrender unto me, I respond accordingly. A devotee must therefore be completely free from envy, especially of other devotees. To envy other devotees is a great offense, a Vaishnava aparadh. A devotee who constantly engages in hearing and chanting, Shravana and Kirtana, is certainly freed from the disease of envy, and thus he becomes eligible to go back home, back to Godhead. It's very, very important, this verses, the importance of hearing, because festivals like Ram Navami is not meant to just wear some new clothes or do something, but forget the real essence that I should utilize my time in hearing about the pastimes of the Lord, in spending time in that. But unfortunately for people who are born in Kali Yuga, like all of us, we find interest in everything else. If there is a gossip is going on about something, about somebody else, or something very trivial, something material, people can go on till 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, they don't mind. But when it comes to Krishna Katha, not easy. People don't get any interest. There is no interest to come and see the beautiful darshan of the Lord. There is no interest to come and participate in spiritual activities, because the mati itself is not going there. What is the problem? Why it is not happening? That has to be understood. And from this portion of Bhagavatam that we are reading, this verse that we have taken, let us understand what we can do, how we can develop this, and what is, like we saw, the power of just hearing and just allowing this Ramakatha to enter into our ears. It can not only remove the disease of envy, it can free us from the bondage of fruitive activities. It's a very, very interesting, very important, powerful thing. So I just want you to pay attention to this mentality of Ravana and Vibhishana, which is what is given in this verse, which we saw, that how Lord Ram used these monkeys, and the monkeys who used some mountain peaks and the branches, twigs of the trees, and made a bridge and crossed over this ocean of the Indian Ocean and reached the other side, Lanka, by the direction of Vibhishana. They were about to conquer, whatever that verse says. They were about to fight Lanka, which was burned by Hanuman before. Very powerful. Vibhishana and Ravana were the children of the same mother and father. They were both demoniac, but they have differences. And how the mentality of Ravana ensured his death, his imminent destruction, whereas Vibhishana, because he surrendered to the Lord, whole life transformed. If somebody doesn't surrender, if somebody doesn't understand what is Saranagati, if somebody doesn't understand that this human life is meant for Sharanagati, then there is Maranagati, like one has to die, which happened in the case of Ravana. But there is some problem with this. It's on and off, it's happening. But anyway, as long as it works, it's fine. But in the case of Vibhishana, this is completely different, and this is what we should learn. Even though there could be brothers from the same family, how by developing the right qualities, one can pave the path for liberation, whereas one who is not understanding and who does not follow the right path can pave the path to bondage and eternal, and you know, like Krishna says that he puts him in some very deep, dark dungeon of material existence. I wanted to talk about the problem in our life as to why we are not able to take up to this path of devotion or spirituality. Very interestingly, if you see the path that we are following, the path is called the path of, what is the path that we are following? What is it called? What is the path we are following? Devotional service. Very interestingly, in the 6th chapter, 5th verse, Krishna says something. I'll come to this little lately. Where is the verse? Yeah. 6th chapter, 5th verse. Krishna says, Uddharet atmanatmanam, natmanam avasadayat, atmaiva hi atmano bandhur, atmaiva ripuratmanaha. This verse is very, very important actually. Very, very important. Very, 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 very to the power infinity important. Uddharet atmanatmanam, natmanam avasadayat, atmaiva hi atmano bandhur, atmaiva ripuratmanaha. The translation of Prabhupada is, a man must elevate himself by his own mind and not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. Uddharet is to deliver. Uddharet atmana atmanam. Who is going to come and deliver you? Kaun aayega? Seshu? Children? Uddharet atmana atmanam. And how will you deliver yourself? By your own mind. Actually, it is this verse, if we pay attention, there are a lot of secrets which are revealed by Krishna. Uddharet, one must deliver himself by his own mind. Uddharet atmanatmanam, natmanam avasadayat. The same mind can degrade us, can take us to the hellish planets. Atmaiva hi atmano bandhur, atmaiva ripuratmanah. The mind can be our best friend, can be our worst enemy. The path that we are following is called the path of yoga. There could be a path of bhoga, which most of the people in outside world they are following. The path that we are following is called the path of yoga. So yoga, the word yoga means linking. Whom are you trying to link? You're trying to link yourself, Jivatma, with the super soul or the Lord, Paramatma. But in between this, Jivatma and Paramatma, we have got our own mind, and which becomes the real problem. Uddharet atmanatmanam natmanam avasadayet atmaiva hi atmano bandhur atmaiva ripuratmana. Our mind and senses are so distracted. There is so much of rasa, there is so much of interest in hearing some nonsense things, some movies, some gossip. That all will give pleasure. The moment you come to sitting for Krishna Katha, Hari Katha, either people will feel sleepy, or they'll feel distracted, they will be looking at time, when to go, or in the name of service they will disappear. They saying they are doing something else. Because the mind is not attracted to this. Mind which is so conditioned from so many lifetimes, it only gets rasa in material things. That is why these are called jada indriya, material senses and material mind. And because of this conditioning, material mind and material senses are only looking pleasure in material things. And as Prabhupada is saying, as long as this mind and senses are not becoming pure, not becoming transcendental, we cannot reach Paramatma. No matter how many festivals, no matter how many these things you do, if there is no attraction for the Lord, if I am not able to develop an attraction for hearing, if I am not able to develop an attraction for the spiritual things, for the transcendental things, these are all useless waste of time. Shrama eva hi kevalam. What is that verse? Dharma swanushtitah pumsam viswaksena kathasu yaha notpadayat yadiratim shrama eva hi kevalam. Dharma swanushtitah pumsam. We are practicing religious life. We are trying to follow this path of spirituality. The difficulty is because the mind and senses are our biggest enemy. They pull us. They only want to take us in different directions. Why you have to go to temple? Why you have to sit in front of some class and hear? Do something else. Cook something and eat. Go somewhere, talk something. All these things are very pleasurable because it is conditioned now. And that conditioned mind is our worst enemy. That is why in this purport, actually Prabhupada writes, Manaiva manushyanam karanam bandhamokshayah bandhaya vishayango muktyai nirvishayam manaha. Manaiva manushyanam karana bandhamokshaya. The mind is the cause of bondage and the mind is the cause of liberation. Mind absorbed in sense objects is the cause of bondage. Mind you, it is not your body, it is not your intelligence, it is not your false ego, it is none of those, it is mind. Manaiva manushyanam karanam bandham mokshaya. There are very interesting examples which are given, and two of them I would like to quote. Why it is important? Because, unless that why is very strong, the moment we hear to our excuses and justifications of our mind, which wants us to take us to some other material things, I will not be able to control. And this conditioning is eternal. Anadi karma phale. From how many lifetimes this conditioning is there, we have no idea. It will not go with some simple medicine. Just some chanting Hare Krishna mantra for a few months or a few years is not enough. So that is why very rigidly, very strictly, very strongly, one has to hear Harikatha. One has to spend time in this. Unless one absorbs the mind without hearing the excuses, not listening to the dictation of mind which wants to go to some material objects or some material sense gratification, very rigidly, one has to spend time in this. If it is neglected, we are doomed to destruction. And I'll talk about it in just a minute. Let us take two examples from the verses from Bhagavatam, how this mind and senses are so difficult to control and what they do to us. So this is one verse which is spoken by Prahlad Maharaj. Very interesting verse, very powerful verse. He's telling, Jivvekta achyuta vikarsati mavi tripta Sishno anyatastvag udaram shravanam kutaschit. Grano anyataschapala chakarma saktir. Bhabhyah sapatnya ivageha patim lunanti. This line, Bhabhyah sapatnya ivageha patim lunanti, Prabhupada has quoted many times at different places. Bhabhyah sapatnya ivageha patim lunanti. The example that is given is, the analogy that is given is, if a husband has got many wives, then the many wives will distract, will pull him in very different directions. One wife itself is difficult to manage, right? Not easy. So many demands, so many things. Even it's the same for the opposite this thing. But imagine if a man has got many wives. Bhabhyah sapatnya ibageha patim lunanti. So which are those many wives which are there inside us? What are those many wives? Jivvaikta achyuta vikarsati mavitripta. First thing is our tongue. My dear Lord, this is Prahlad Maharaj praying to Narsimhadev. My dear Lord, O infallible one, Achyuta, my position is like that of a person who has many wives, all trying to attract him in their own way. For example, the tongue is attracted to palatable dishes. The tongue, so voracious, so uncontrollable. Anywhere, anything which is little tasty, the tongue is running after that. The tongue is attracted to palatable dishes, the genitals to sex with an attractive woman, and the sense of touch to contact with soft things. The belly, although filled, still wants to eat more, and the ear, not attempting to hear about you, is generally attracted to cinema songs. The sense of smell is attracted to yet another side. The restless eyes are attracted to sense gratification, to scenes of sense gratification, and the active senses are attracted elsewhere. In this way, I am certainly embarrassed. This is what is our position. I mean, Prahlad Maharaj very vividly, very aptly puts it. Actually, it is impossible. It is very difficult to bring our mind to spiritual subject. And the kind of dosages that we take, sometimes maybe, we are reading or we are hearing little, not enough. One has to profusely hear, sufficiently hear about this, sufficiently read, sufficiently give engagements to all the senses to engage in transcendental devotional service. Otherwise, it is not possible. There is another verse which comes in connection with Ajamila's pastime, and here it is mentioned: Panchabhi kurute swarthan, pancha vedhata panchabhi, ekastu sodosena trin, swayam saptadasho asnute. Panchabhi kurute swarthan, pancha vedatha panchabhi. There are 15 things which are mentioned. The first 5 things which are mentioned is our working senses. Panchabhi kurute swarthan. Swarthan, we have identified some of the things which we want to do. Swarthan, this is our desirable thing. So I use my 5 working senses. Panchabhi kurute swarthan. Pancha vedatha panchabhi. And then there are 5 sense objects. And then there are 5 knowledge acquiring senses. And the 5 knowledge acquiring senses are always getting attracted by the 5 sense objects. The forms of sound, touch, smell, whatever, the sense objects for each of these senses. So these 15 things are creating an illusion around the 16th one, which is called mind. Mind is the real culprit, which, it'll ensure the senses and the sense objects are engaged and the mind is taking pleasure. There was a story which Prabhupada has told in one of the lectures, very interesting story. There was in the village there was one old lady who was living, and this old lady, her only job was to go and talk about Jagannath Prabhu is very bad. He doesn't sit properly in the class, and he doesn't like his other devotees, to his wife. And then he'll go to his wife and talk that, he'll talk all these things about Jagannath Prabhu to his wife, and then come to Jagannath Prabhu and say, Ratneshwari Mataji is not good at all. No service attitude. Like this she'll do. And then after some time they will quarrel, right? But obvious, they have to fight. So like that, in that village, he used to ensure everybody is fighting. Akhilasha Prabhu is fighting with Bhagavad Tattva Prabhu. Bhagavad Tattva Prabhu is fighting with Vishnu. Vishnu is fighting with Panduranga, and everybody was fighting. There was one exception. In that village, there was one Brijesh, whom she was not able to touch. Come what may, no matter what happens, this fellow was always, undisturbed. So he thought, "Arey, how do I? What should I do?" So she goes to him and says that, your wife, she is actually a witch. She's a Dayan. Dayan ko kya bolte hain? Witch, right? Witch. She's a Dayan. She wants you to die, so that once you die, she will suck your blood. This fellow got scared. He said, No, I know my wife. No, she's fine. She's not a witch and all. She will not do all these things. But he got little scared. And then he goes to his wife. She goes to his wife and tells that your husband is actually lacking salt in his body. There's no salt in his salt is getting reduced. Sodium chloride. There's no sodium chloride in his body. He said, "What is the sodium chloride? Is not इतना salt तो मैं रोज डालता हूँ कि salt कैसे कम हो रहा है?" But she was also worried that my husband is not having. But don't tell it to him. I have found out. I have got some calculations, some this thing I have done, and that's how I found out. And same thing she told to her husband also. Then she left. Then in the night, husband and wife are sleeping. The wife got up and she's actually licking his body, thinking sodium chloride kam hai ki nahi check kar raha hai. Husband got up and looked at this wife's behavior. She is licking. He remembered that, he told Liz, she wants to suck my blood. Started fighting. Right, the same thing, mind is the whole culprit which just stays aloof and ensures that senses are going after the sense objects and they are bewildered. Panchabhi kurute swarthan, panchavedatha panchabhi, ekastu sodosena trin, swayam saptadaso ashnute. Swayam saptadaso, the 17th one is the soul proper. And if the soul has to go towards the Supreme Lord, very important, the mind first has to be engaged in devotional service. Sabai manah Krishna padara vindayor. First is our mind has to come towards this. Sabai manah Krishna padara vindayor. Vachamsi vaikunta gunanu varnane. Translation of this: above the 5 senses of perception, the 5 working senses, and the 5 objects of the senses is the mind, which is the 16th element. Above the mind is the 17th element, the soul, the living being himself, who in cooperation with the other 16 enjoys the material world alone. The living being enjoys 3 kinds of situations, namely happy, distressful, and mixed. So now, if this mind, if this rati, our attraction to the Lord has to come, then only there is a priti which will develop in the heart. Otherwise, it's all official. It is very superficial, mechanical. If there is no attraction for the Lord, if rati is not there, if the rati is there in some material world, then it is impossible. Then, attaining the perfection in human life is impossible. But how do I develop a rati for the Lord? Rati will lead to priti, correct. But how do I develop a rati? What is the answer? All the sadhakas, the devotees, the intellectuals of IHF Boston, please tell us, what is the way I can develop rati on the Lord? Performing devotional activity के लिए तो rati नहीं है. There is no attraction. By hearing? Huh? Okay. Satam prasangan. Okay, yeah, that is one thing which he is saying is correct. Syat mahat sevaya vipraha, Vasudeva katharuchi. What is that? Syat mahat sevaya vipraha. 1.2.16 or Sushusho Shraddhadanasya Syat mahat sevaya vipraha. Punya Tirtha Nishevanat. Actually, when we engage in devotional service to the Supreme Lord, to the devotees of the Lord, Sushusho Shraddhadanasya Vasudeva Katharuchi Shat Mahat Sevaya Vipra. Punya Shravana Punya Tirtha Nishevana. So because they carry they are tirthas, they are walking tirthas, they are walking place of pilgrimage. When we engage in devotional service to a pure devotee, some rati, ruchi develops. Kunti Maharani puts it in a very different way, very nice way. She says, Tvai me ananya vishaya matir madhupate sakrat ratim udhvata daddha gange vaugham mudanvati Tvai me ananya vishaya matir madhupate sakrat. There are two words which are used here. One is mati and the other one is rati. If you really want to get attracted to this, put your attention first. Attention should be brought here. Attention to hearing, attention to reading, attention to chanting, attention to every single devotional activities. Tvai me ananya vishaya matir madhupate sakrat. Ratim uddhata daddha gange vaugham udanvati. Like Ganges which naturally flows to the ocean, our rati will go towards the Lord if we bring the mati first. Tvai me ananya vishaya. Now our mati is in all kinds of vishayas which are so variegated, so diverse. But first that attention has to be brought to the Supreme Lord, to this spiritual science, to this chanting of the holy names of the Lord. When that mati is brought, then rati will develop, and that rati will lead to preeti, and that preeti will ensure that we engage in the pastimes of the Lord, or we are able to relish. So now I have started with Bibhishana and Ravana mentality, and I spoke about how when we consciously not, actually when the moment we hear to our mind's dictations, it is only meant to give us trouble. It is only meant to take us to all these materialistic things. That is natural. That is, there is a rasa which is already there in that. So that is why it is very important to not to listen to this mind's dictations. Hear very attentively, strictly, rigidly. Take these words of spiritual master in the scriptures very strictly and then follow. To conclude our time, I'm not going into the pastimes of what happened and how the mentality of Vibhishana. So Ravana basically doesn't want to surrender. It wants to follow the dictations of mind. Mind is saying, okay, even if I have got so many wives, I have got so many maidservants, I just heard from my own sister, Sita is very beautiful. Doesn't matter who she is, even if she is married, I will go and kidnap her and enjoy her. This is what mind can do. What is that verse? Anyway, we got this verse from Prahlad Maharaj also, where he's saying that all the senses are looking for that. He didn't have a desire. He was not thinking about it. The moment he heard it from Suparnika that Sita is so beautiful, automatically a desire came. And now he went on to do this. This is what happens when somebody follows the dictation of the mind. Whereas somebody like Bibhishana, who's there in the midst of all these demons, in the midst of all these demoniac people, yet he is listening to the instructions of the scriptures. And that is how he is able to remain Krishna conscious in this adverse material environment. And there's a beautiful verse which he says in the Ramayana, where when this monkeys, they reached the other side of the ocean, they reached Lanka, and this news reached Ravana. Ravana was not dazed, or he was unfazed. He was not worried about it. And he had some followers who were also saying, monkeys are our breakfast. If they have come, that is they have digged their own graveyard. So we are going to finish them off. Vibhishan, however, being very learned, very intelligent, he says, no, Lord Ram is not ordinary. Neither Sita Devi is ordinary. You should release her, and you should go and take shelter of Lord Ram. Vibhishana was, insulted and thrown out of the kingdom by Ravana. So like we saw in the case of Vidura, who was also insulted by Duryodhana, and he goes and takes this as an opportunity takes this as a divine arrangement and goes and associates with Maitreya Rishi. Similarly, Vibhishana took this as an opportunity to come and take shelter of Lord Ram. And he came flying with other few demons, and all the parties like Sugriva, Angada, all the wise monkeys in Lord Ram's side, they thought that even if it is actually the brother of Ravana after all, he may have some evil intentions. He's just trying to come and see what all things we have or what strategies we have. We should not give shelter to him, no matter who he is. But then this famous verse of Lord Ram which comes, Sakrad eva prapanno yas tasmat Sakrad eva prapanno yas tavasmiti chayachate Abhayam sarvada tasmai dadami etad vartama mama. Sakradeva prapanno yas tavasmiti chayachate. Just once, no matter how many sinful activities we have done, no matter how many sinful activities we still want to do, if we just once, even if we are a demon like Vibhishana, even if it is Ravana, Lord Ram was about to give him protection. Sakrad eva prapanno yas tavasmiti chayachate. If just once we come and take shelter of the Lord and say we are yours, Sakradeva prapanno yas tavasmiti chayachate abhayam sarvada tasmai dadami etad vratam mama. This is a vow. Vratam is a vow, and this vow is taken by the Lord. Dadami etad vratam mama. This is my vow, O Vibhishana. I will give protection to anyone who has taken shelter of me even once. Sakradeva prapanno yas. Krishna says sarvadharman parityajya mamekam sharanam raja. He puts a condition, but Lord Ram says Sakradeva prapanno yas tavasmiti chayachate. No matter who you are, what you are, whether you are following, not following, you are a demon, devotee, whatever it is, you come and just say once that I am yours, I have surrendered, I will give protection. Abhayam sarvada tasmai dadami etad vratam eva. So these are some of the important things on this most auspicious day of Ram Navami. Our goal should be how I can allow myself to hear more of this Lord Ram's pastimes, the nectarian pastimes of Lord Ram, and how that pastimes, when we hear it cleanses, it purifies the heart from that envy, which is a disease. Not only cleanses and purifies the envy of disease, but also gives us liberation from the bondage of fruitive activities. So let us join in the evening for celebration. We will have the Ramataraka Yajna, and then we will hear the actual real some pastimes of Lord Ram. But I want all of you to take this opportunity to pray to Lord Ram to always develop that attraction for Lord Ram. Always develop an attraction for the Supreme Lord, to hear his pastimes, to associate with all the transcendental things. Only when the mind and the senses are purified, only when the mind and senses become transformed from material to transcendental, that Jivatma will meet Paramatma. Otherwise, it will never be possible. So, festivals like Ram Navami and other festivals are great opportunities for us to make advancement in our spiritual life. I'll stop here and see if you have any questions or comments. No questions? No questions. We will chant this verse one more time. Repeat after me. At least one verse if you chant, which is glories of Lord Ram, will help us only. Badhva dadho raghupatir vividhadrikute Setum kapindra karakam pitabhuruhange
Setum kapindra karakam pitabhurangange
Sugriva nila hanumad pramukhe
Sugriva nila hanumat pramukhe ranike
Lankam vibhishana drusha vishadagradagdha
Lankam vibhishana dvisha vishasatanga
Shri Ram Navami Mahamahotsav ki Srila Prabhupada ki Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam